Good morning, Candice. Candice from BMG. Good morning. Candice, can you hear me? Good morning, Candice. Can you hear me?
Candice didn't join with an audio. I think she must go out and rejoin. I see she that didn't join with an audio.
Oh, thank you, DM, and good morning, DM.
Good morning, sir, and how are you?
I'm good, DM. Thank you. I see she has now joined me.
Oh, yes. What time is
Good morning, Candice. I'm good, DM. Thank you.
I
Candice,
see
can you
she
hear
has
me?
now
Joined me.
Oh, yes.
Morning, Candice. Oh. Good morning. There is someone who joined with a number 1568. Could you please rename yourself? And also Candice from PMG, kindly give us your full name, surname actually, for record purposes. Thank you. Good morning once more. There is Candice from PMG. Please write your surname. There's also one who joined with Galaxy Tab. Please, we need full names.
Morning, honorable members. I hope I'm audible. Morning, everybody.
Recording in progress.
Minister, the Deputy Minister, staff, and some CDPOs, which in an appropriate time they will introduce themselves. We are going to start now with our portfolio committee. I'm not going to take long in terms of welcoming. It's our first meeting since we are back from the constituents period, which I think all of us have been doing our work as expected. Because we are also sharing the space with the, I'm saying sharing the space deliberately with load shedding. I don't want to delay so that people are not cut off whilst we are still in the meeting. I had to relocate from my place because of the problems of the network. I will then allow Mr. Sakaza to take us through the roll call. I've been listening to him. He has been calling people who have joined in using gadgets and others who are not telling us their surnames. I would appreciate if people can do that, because if people join with gadgets and we don't know who are they, we will then take them off, because we are to know who is here. There's no difference between a physical meeting and a virtual meeting in terms of guests or anybody telling us who he is. So if there is somebody who has joined with a gadget and not using his name or her name, that person will have to tell us. If he is refusing to introduce himself, Mr. Sakaza, you'll take him off the platform. I'll hand over to you, Mr. Sakaza, for a quick roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Chair, and good morning to the entire portfolio committee and members. Good morning to the Minister and the Deputy Minister. Chair, we've got today the following members of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labor. We've got our Honorable Chairperson Dunjwa, Honorable Makubele, Honorable Ndabe, Honorable Nonsele, Honorable Begram, Honorable Kado, Honorable Ligoff, Honorable Mkondo, Honorable Denner. Chair, I have received an apology from Honorable Volmarans, and also Honorable Ngobo said he'll be 30 minutes late, but he's going to join. From the staff, Chair, we've got myself, we've got Uposhia, the committee assistant, we've got Uteboho Mukwena, the researcher, we've got Sibongiseni Ngobo, the content advisor. So far, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sakaza. Can we get the introduction from the department? Whoever is leading the department, I'm not quite sure if the DG is here. I did see the minister and the deputy. Can the DG or whoever is leading the staff, the admin staff, to take us through who are here?
Good morning, Chair, and good morning to the honorable members. As you indicated, Chair, both the Minister and DM are in the meeting. We also have the Ms. Eki Moilo, who's the DDG responsible for inspection and enforcement services. We have Ms. Marsha Bronkhorst, who's the Chief of Operations, and she's going to help us with running the presentation. We have Mr. Sam Rotoba, who's the DDG responsible for public employment services. I haven't seen the DDG responsible for corporate services. She's supposed to join in. We have Sbusiso Phakathi, who's the Chief Executive Officer of SCE. Mr. Sipho Ndebele, who's the acting DDG Labor Market Policy and Industrial Relations. We have Mr. Tebogo Tejane, who's the head of our communications. And we have Mr. Lumkom Timte, who's the advisor to the minister. Ms. Onkem Jo, who has taken the responsibility of being the chief of staff in the ministry, and Mr. Zandi Mweli, who's the head of the Deputy Minister's Office, and the Parliamentary Liaison Officer, Mr. Tando Wababa. And we have Matapelo Mataboche, who's in the office of the DG. We have the CDPOs, Ms. Emily Maneli from Free State, Mr. Tsepo Mukomatsidi from Gauteng, Mr. Albani from Northern Cape, Ms. Dojek from the Eastern Cape, Mr. Ndamo from the Western Cape, Mr. Kambula from KZN, Mr. Tlati from Limpopo. I haven't seen the CDPO from Northwest. And I haven't seen the CDPO from Mpumalanga. We have a new CDPO that we've just appointed recently for the Mpumalanga province chair. And I think those are the two. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DG. Do we have any guests, Mr. Sakaza, who are to introduce themselves?
Yeah, there are names that I don't.
TBS. Okay. Can our guests introduce themselves, please?
Your chair, your video is upside down, Chair, on the side.
It's okay now?
Thank you, yes, Chair, it's fine.
If there are any guests that are in the meeting, can they please introduce themselves? And the person who has joined in with a gadget, with a number, Mr. Sakazi, who is that person?
I still need them to change, Chair, and put their names. If not, then I'll follow instruction to take them out.
Okay, thank you very much. Whilst I'm going to take my thing off. Minister, that you are in the meeting, I don't know whether you would like to have some few political overview, or you will then, when we are done with the presentation, come in when there are questions that have been asked. If there are any issues that you'd like to raise, I just want to check with you.
I can say something very briefly, and then run also to the Economic Cluster Cabinet Committee. But I guess I'll come back from that cluster meeting. But I can say something now if you allow me, Chair.
Yes, Minister, you may.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and the members of the committee, the Deputy Minister, the DG and the senior management of the department at national and in the provinces. By the way, happy birthday, DG. Thank you for this opportunity. We always, and I always say, we take these engagements with Parliament very seriously. They are the heart of our democracy, where the legislature holds us or holds the executive and the senior officials to account. The officials, of course, will provide the detailed presentations. But just briefly, I want to flag the following, Chairperson. The headline figures, performance moved from 91% to 95% from quarter 2 to quarter 3. That is on slide 5. And taking a longer view from the financial year 2021 to 2022, there is a clear upward trend from 73 to 95%, which is on slide 13. Which, of course, is not to say that there have been or there have not been problem areas, both in some provinces and some programs. An example is the filling of the vacant posts, although, again, the trend, although the trend is in the right direction on slide 19. And this is then reflected in the financial report for 2022-23, where one of the factors behind underspending is identified as not filling of the vacancies. Clearly an issue that must be addressed in the midst of this high unemployment. I would also flag the public employment services and the increase in the number of employment opportunities registered, where overachievement against the targets is attributed to increased capacity as a result of the employment of 250 interns under the Presidential Stimulus Initiative, which is on slide 45, also resulting in exceeding the target in placing of the registered unemployed person in the registered employment opportunities on slide 8. With regards to the development of the national employment policy, including the national labor migration policy, a progress report will be presented on slide 50 to 59. The supported employment enterprises, it's worth noting, have witnessed a considerable growth in the sales over the first quarter or quarter 1 and quarter 2, resulting in additional employment opportunities for people with disabilities. Those are the highlights I just wanted to say, Chairperson. Let me pause there again. Thank you for this opportunity, Honorable Chair. I'll jump out at 12:30, hoping to be back at least by maybe 11 o'clock, because of the this economic cluster cabinet committee. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much for those highlights. We will then hand over to the DG in terms of the presentation of DEL for quarter 2 and quarter 3. DG, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll ask the COO, Ms. Bronco.
Sorry, DG. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much, Chair, and to the Minister as well. I'm honored that I'm spending my birthday with the Portfolio Committee. Thank you, Chair. Ms. Bronkhorst, over to you.
Thank you very much, DG. I'm going to ask Matapelu to just share the slides with us. As is the process normally, is that I would just refer to some slides because it's a very lengthy presentation. I would also like to just inform the committee that I submitted 3 separate documents, and I would like to explain why. The first one is called quarter 2 and 3. Excuse me. This is the one that is on the screen, and this is the presentation I'm going to do. Then I have also submitted a quarter 2 and a quarter 3 separately in terms of performance information. These 2 documents unpack the performance in more detail. But if I added all of it together, it would have brought us to 230 slides. So that was just attached for additional information and, of course, questions should there be any on those detailed slides. Chairperson, then I'm going to, with your approval, focus on a number of slides and then focus on the area of underperformance, and then in more detail, as Minister has already alluded to the report on the employment policy and the labour migration policy. So in terms of the table of contents, you'll see that we're going to look at the overall performance per quarter. I'm going to look at the annual performance plan in terms of progress against the indicators, look at the underachievements, and then the CFO will come and do the financial report, as well as the CEO of SEE will do his presentation as well. For those members who are following on the devices or perhaps hard copies, I'm going to move to slide number 5 now. This is the overview of the performance for the 2 quarters under discussion, under review. Firstly, quarter 2, the performance there. We achieved a performance of 91%, with 9% of the indicators not achieved. Total achievement, then 20 indicators of the 22. Then in quarter 3, our performance improved a little bit more, and we achieved 95%, with 21 of the indicators in this quarter achieved versus 1 that was not achieved. On the following slide, slide number 6, this gives the breakdown of the performance per quarter per branch or program for that year. Sorry, slide 6. Sorry, Matapelo, just slide 6. Go back if you don't mind. Thank you. This is the cumulative performance for the 3 quarters then at the end of December for the department in terms of achieving its indicators. We were lying at an 86% performance level at the end of quarter 3. Now we move to slide 9. That was the slide that I started with. This is, as I was saying, the indication of how the performance was per program or branch. Administration was the one branch that did not achieve all its indicators. They achieved 78%, with 2 indicators of the 9 not achieved. The other 3 programs achieved 100% of their indicators, and that took us to a 91% performance level. On slide 11 is the performance of quarter 3 per program. Here you will see that administration has managed to achieve all 8 of their indicators, and I think since I've been reporting, this was the first quarter that they have achieved all their indicators, followed by IES also achieving all of their indicators, public employment services, and then LP and industrial relations unfortunately did not achieve 1 indicator, which took it down their performance to 83%, but the department in totality achieved 95% of the indicators. On slide 12, I've just given a brief snapshot for members to see how the performance of the department has improved from quarter 1, where we were lying at 71%, to quarter 2 to 91%, quarter 3, 95% of the indicators, with public employment services consistently achieving 100% of the indicators. On slide 14, I have given a breakdown of the performance of provinces for quarter 2 and quarter 3 for IES. And here members will note that 2 provinces have not achieved their indicators, that being Limpopo and Northern Cape. These 2 provinces have been struggling the whole of last year to achieve their indicators in IES. On slide number 15, I give a breakdown of public employment services. And here again, only Limpopo did not achieve their 100% indicators. So although they did not achieve 100%, because of the overachievement in other provinces, it enabled the branch to achieve 100% of its indicators by the end of quarter number 3. The next slide I would like to look at is slide 19, and this is where I start looking now at underachievement and the reasons for underachievement. In quarter 2, we had an underachievement in terms of filling of the vacancies. The indicator was 8% or less, and the achievement there was 8.76%. And then this improved in quarter 3, and the achievement was 7.62%. So the remedial action which was implemented seemed to bear fruit, as we then achieved the indicator on, as I said, 7.62%. The next slide I would look at is slide 24. This is also the ER cases, or the consequential management cases, if we want to put it that way. In quarter two, 67% of cases were finalized. And that also has improved in quarter three to 100% of the cases. And there were cases that were achieved, but they were not fraud cases. So there were other discipline cases that were achieved. But in quarter three, we did not achieve any fraud cases to pursue. Slide number 39. Slide 39, please. I have put in a slide here for members to see what the monies were that were recovered by the inspection and enforcement services in terms of the different pieces of legislation that they do enforce. Now, if we look at the BCEA, you will see that we've recovered just over 3.8.5 million rands. A fairly substantial recovery for the national minimum wage of just under 24 million rand. So clearly there's work that we have to do, and which is being done in terms of the national minimum wage enforcement. In terms of compensation fund or the Compensation Act, 39 million was recovered in terms of employers who did not pay their returns of earnings. In terms of the UI Contributions Act, 1.2 million was recovered. And then in terms of the Employment Equity Act, 565,000. On slide 40, it gives us the breakdown for quarter three. And here members will see that in terms of the BCEA, the recovery here was a little bit lower. And I think that we all know that December month is a month where most factories are closed, most workplaces are closed. So the recovery would be lower. BCEA, we recovered again just under 3 million rand. National minimum wage, the recovery was 15.5 million rand. In terms of compensation for injuries, diseases, the recovery was 310,000 and UI was 313,000. For employment equity, there was a recovery of 360 million rand. Chairperson, I'm going to now look at the progress of the employment policy and the labour migration policy. And this is at the end of quarter three. So since then, clearly a lot of work has happened, but I would like to give you the progress as was at end of quarter number three. So the intention of the policy is, as you all know, to foster demand-led employment growth, to emphasize the implementation and institutional concerns so that we have full, productive, freely chosen employment in the country. We want to look that it's at unemployment, especially amongst young people and women, and to translate growth into jobs. Next slide, please, Matapelo. We move to slide 51, please. Nope. No, 51. Okay, Chairperson, it seems if there is a challenge with the slideshow. So I will, if you will allow me just to open a moment my device and move to slide 51. Thank you. So what was done? The draft situational analysis was presented to the stakeholders. The preliminary scenarios for the economic modelling of the different policy options have been developed. Broad areas in the labour market and beyond that the National Employment Policy will have to respond to have been outlined, and the zero draft policy was developed and presented to the Interministerial Committee and senior management of the department, as well as the Employment Services Board. On slide 52, in response to the phase 2 of the socio-economic impact assessment, the Presidency has issued a provisional certificate and advised that we present the draft NEP to the economic sectors, investment, employment, and infrastructure development cluster in order to consult at the conceptual stage before the certificate is issued for us to table at Cabinet. Then there was a process for the appointment of a service provider to assist with the phase 2 of the development process, and the terms of reference for the service provider were reviewed. In terms of the national employment policy, further progress, that service provider was the appointment of the service provider was therefore finalized. And at the end of Q3, we were starting with consultations with the employment cluster and economic departments. On slide 54, we're looking at the national labour migration policy. And again, there's the underlying principles. The adoption of the guiding principles aligned with our constitutional values, to identify national strategic priorities and to sustain intervention methods and monitoring of these mechanisms. Here is just a reflection on slide number 54 of the process, the key areas of intervention from the labour migration policy, and I'm not going to spend too much time on that. If we move to slide number 56, just an indication of countries in the SADC region who have adopted a national labour migration policy. And these are Lesotho, Namibia, Seychelles, and then the countries on the right, Malawi, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Eswatini, are still busy with the development thereof. On slide 57 is the action plan in terms of the national labour migration policy. As you can see that because of certain activities which we were advised to do, there's been a slight delay in terms of the timeframes, but this is how it was at the end of Q3. I would like to look at slide 58, 59, and this gives us feedback in terms of the impact analysis regarding the regulations and policies that have been tabled, and I'm not going to spend time in terms of going into the detail. Chairperson, then I would like to look at slide 62, which gives us an idea of the underperformance for labour policy and industrial relations in Q3. You will recall that they had 100% performance in Q2. So what was not achieved was the national minimum wage investigation report. It had to be published by the 30th of November. Unfortunately, it was only published on the 15th of December. There were challenges with the information which was received in terms of the quarterly labour force survey, and that has caused delays as the stats had to be checked and rechecked again to make sure that it was correct. On slide 63, again an area of underperformance, and this was the public comments in terms of the national minimum wage. And I think we have already alluded to that. This has been tabled in December, and that there were challenges with the sampling and the data around this piece of research. Chairperson, that takes care of the performance information presentation. If you will, allow me, if you will allow for the CFO to do the presentation on the finances. Thank you.
Thank you, Masha. Can the CEO take us through the presentation on finances?
Thanks, Chair. Just waiting for the finance part.
And we'd like to see your face, if it's possible, but it must be possible. Thank you. Okay, you may start.
Chair, this is not the slide. Q2 slide presentation, please. The expenditure for Q2, the department was sitting at 46%.
The slide is not showing. Your slides are not showing. I don't know what's the problem. Whether is it with Matapelo or is it with yourself? Whilst we are having that challenge, members, can I humbly request that because we have been forwarded, these documents have been circulated to us. Can we go to our documents if it's possible? I don't know what's happening now. Masha?
Chairperson, I would not know what the reason would be, but I do know that in my presentation, the last two slides, there's a summary slide of the finances. Unfortunately, not the detail as the CFO would want to present. So if the committee would be comfortable with only looking at the summary slide, then we can show those slides.
But what is the problem? DG, what's the problem here with this? Okay, thank you.
In terms of the expenditure for Q2, for Q2, the department was sitting at 46%, with administration at 41%, where for the actual expenditure of 438 million. Inspection and enforcement services, expenditure of 263, which equates to 40%. Public employment services, the actual expenditure for Q2 was 479, which equates to 48%. And labor policy and industrial relations, the expenditure of 683, which equated to 52%. Overall, the expenditure of 1.8 billion against the total allocation of 4 billion and 64. In total, for the Q2, the total expenditure equated to 46%. And next slide. For the Q3, administration were sitting at 72% with the expenditure of 796 million. Inspection and enforcement services, the expenditure of 467 million, which equated to 76%. And public employment services is 814 million, which equated to 80% expenditure. And labor policy and industrial relations, 1.3 billion, which equated to 96%. Qualifier on labor policy and industrial relations, the bulk of the expenditure there, which is about 1 million out of their allocation, goes to CCMA, and the bulk of the expenditure is managed through the SLA transfers to CCMA. So that's why they are sitting comfortably at 96%, even though it was Q3. The total expenditure for the department for Q3 is 3.395 billion, which equated to 83% of the expenditure for Q3. I think that summarizes the finances. The COO has also, against each program, put the performance in terms of what each branch has achieved vis-a-vis the finances. That goes through on both quarters. Thank you.
Thank you, CFO. Are we done, Masha?
Except for SEE, yes, Chair. SEE still has to present.
Okay. I thought from the side.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, from outside we are done. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. SEE?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chair, Honorable Chair. Through you, as Honorable Minister has alluded in his opening remarks, SEE delivered some impressive numbers in quarter 2 and 3 with regards to both sales revenue and the absorption of persons with disabilities.
Are we able just to see your face? Can you see your face, please?
I'm having load sharing, but let me just try.
Okay. If you have got load shedding, that's fine. We'll exempt you because it will affect the presentation. Oh, okay. All right.
The presentation. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. On behalf of Support Employment Enterprises, we're presenting quarter 2 and 3 of 2022-23 fiscal year. We can proceed to the next slide. And while we're proceeding, Chairperson, on our quarterly performance report comprises of the creation of employment opportunities for persons with disabilities, signing of MOUs with prospective clients as part of market penetration to drive both customer acquisition and retention. We'll also share with honorable members 5 key priorities that we are driving that will stabilize the entity and enable us to deliver on our mandate. We can move to the next slide. We can move to the next slide. But to cover the next slide, we normally push our targets to employ persons with disabilities from quarter 3 onwards, because in quarter 1 and 2, there's normally less orders, meaning less demand to push capacity. So in quarter 3, we were able to employ 26 persons with disabilities. And in terms of our sales growth, we surpassed our predetermined target of 10%, as members can see. So if you can go back to the previous slide. This just showcases the persons with disabilities. But in terms of sales growth, honorable members, we posted an impressive growth of 128% in quarter 2. And in quarter 3, we continued with such consistency as we posted 155% sales growth, all driven by government business, with 60% coming from school furniture as well as office furniture, which is driven by more margins in terms of output, and 40% coming from textile, which includes hospital linen, which is more of a volume-driven business. So in terms of MOUs, which is customer agreements, in quarter 2, there was no MOU signed. There were no MOUs signed. In quarter 3, we signed 3 MOUs against a target of 5, but it is something that we are driving going forward. Can move to the next slide. The next slide, as it was actually showcased, it's basically a pictorial reflection of what I've just highlighted. I must say our focus remain on absorbing into employment youth with disabilities. Hence, we've partnered with special schools through inclusive education in the Department of Basic Education, as they also support us in terms of buying school furniture in order to drive our revenue. And as such, 36% of our factory employees is basically from youth. So we've been driving that agenda of ensuring that we do respond to the national tragedy of youth unemployment. So we are driven mainly by that going forward. And we can move to the next slide. Yes, basically, this is just a split in terms of our national footprint. We last year, during the same quarter that is basically under review, we had a total of 928 factory employees. As you can see the split across the country, you'll notice that in provinces like Western Cape, Gauteng, Eastern Cape, we've got more employees because we've got more than one factory operation. In Johannesburg, in Gauteng, we've got 3. In Cape Town, we've got 2. Eastern Cape, we've got 2, and KZN, you see the numbers a bit lower because Durban factory was closed. We actually getting it back at the end of this year from Public Works. So these are the numbers. We can move to the next slide. I'm sure members will actually have ample time to go through the slides. You can move to the next slide, please. The next slide is, the next slide is basically also a pictorial, a showcasing of the actual numbers. As you can see, the massive growth from the previous quarters, which is pretty much what I've covered. But on the current slide, it showcases the customers that are actually enabling SEE growth. As you have seen that from that time up until the other quarter, I must confirm as well that to date, SEE has been growing consistently. These are the major customers that have contributed to our growth story, and we are continuing on that trajectory. Western Cape being the biggest, followed by Northern Cape, and we've got Nkangala FT College in Mpumalanga that have actually made also a major contribution. We are registering new MOUs. We've got Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. We are there with that projecting to spend 20 million, which then confirms that the growth is going to be ongoing because of our continued market penetration strategy in getting as many customers as possible. We can move to the next slide. The next slide, I think it pretty much covers our priorities that we're driving. Obviously, our main mandate is creating employment opportunities for persons with disabilities. We've also put together a roadmap to a clean audit opinion. We're working very hard on that as well. And since last year, we were grossly interrupted. There was a lot of downtime because of load shedding. So we are looking at alternative energy source to ensure that we improve our customer satisfaction around that area. Obviously, we're also looking at the SE legal status, which will give us a bit of clarity in terms of governance. We're also looking at growing our sales revenue to 8 million. And as I've showcased a number of customers, prospective customers as well, that is possible because that will enable us to have much needed liquidity to absorb more persons with disabilities. As I've mentioned, that we are driving the agenda of youth employment, especially those with disabilities. Chair, I will end there. That basically concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The only thing is that your slides were not, the numbering was not visible. I've tried to check even in the presentation, but it's fine. Thank you very much. Members, DG, is there anything that you would like to add before I open for questions? Clarity?
No, thanks, Chair. I think they've covered everything.
Oh, okay. Honorable members, there is the presentation of DEL and that of SEE. As you will know, that SEE always make its presentation. It's not a standalone. It's attached to the department. So when they make their presentation, they will make their presentations. They will do that together with the Department of Employment and Labor. I am now opening, giving you the opportunity for questions of clarity, comments. Over to you, honorable members.
Chair, my hand is up.
Honorable Mkondo, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. This is me, Chair, but unfortunately, I'm under load shedding, and I will request that I be given an opportunity to switch off my video.
With pleasure.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning to you, Chair, honorable members, the Minister and the Deputy Minister, the the DG and his team and our guests. Chair, I have a few questions and comments. My first question will be, unfortunately, I did not record the number of slides, but I hope my questions will be understood and be responded to accordingly. Chair, on the performance of the Limpopo province and the Northern Cape, Chair, I want to know exactly what are the reasons of those two provinces underperformance. Could it be they are understaffed? What are the exact reasons? And does the department have any means to make sure that those two provinces are able to perform as expected? The second question, Chair, will be on the slide 50. I think, Chair, I will talk about the employment equity policy. I have seen the minister trying to explain the exact benefits of the employment equity policy. But I think the platform that he is using are not benefiting the poor of the poorest and the vulnerable. Chair, does the department have any plan to make sure that this information that the minister is trying to explain does reach the poorest of the poor in the peripheries of this country? Because, Chair, I think there should be stakeholders identified where the minister has to, with whom the minister has to engage, and it is the responsibility of the department, Chair, that the misleading information that is being given to our people about the employment equity policy, the department has to clarify it as much as possible, because people are confused. They are asking many questions, and some they do believe in what is the narrative that is being given, that it will benefit only a few in this country. So my request, Chair, will be that the minister and the department, they do stakeholder, they intensify on stakeholder engagement, and this employment equity policy is being clarified for many people to understand it. I want to applaud the SEE, Chair, for the improvement in the sales revenue and the absorption of staff. But, Chair, my question is, the 26 youth that they have employed, are they replacing maybe the aged that have retired, or is an additional to what they have been having all along? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mkondo. Honorable Dana, and Honorable Dana will then be followed by Honorable Ndabi in that order.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to everyone. Chair, I have 3 questions, and then I have 2 questions for the Minister, but I see that he hasn't rejoined us, so I hope you'll give me an opportunity later on when the Minister has joined. My questions for the department is regarding the finances, slides 72 and 73 of Ms. Bronkhorst's presentation. And I think the CFO might have mentioned it, and I apologize if I missed it. I'd just like to know why the big difference between the Q2 and Q3 expenditure. I see in quarter 2 for the 4 programs, it was 41%, 40%, 48%, and 52%. And then in quarter 3, 72, 76, 80, and 96%. So I'd just like to know the reason for the difference. And then with regards to supported employment enterprises, I think we should acknowledge the improvement in performance. It looks very well to me, the untrained eye. I'd just like to know, has there been any engagements from government departments or from government as a whole regarding a possible preferential procurement policy or measures to procure through state departments from SEE? I'd like to know that. And then my last question for the department, I'd also like to know where the Bloemfontein factory is. I'd really like to go and have a look there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Dabe.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you and the honorable members, the Minister in absentia, the DM, the DG, and the staff, as well as the staff of the Portfolio Committee. Chair, I want to add on what Honorable Mkhonto has said on the issue of the roadshow by the Minister on employment equity. I attended one of the roadshows that was held here in KZN. I must say that the responses from the communities that we went to in Chatsworth was very positive. And we agreed with the Minister after the engagement that there has to be a rollout plan by the department to make sure that people are informed of the Employment Equity Act or amended Act, so that we will dispel the narrative that talks against the employment equity. It is important that people are fully briefed, and we try and reach out as much as we could about this program of reaching out to the people. The second point to this one is the issue of what has been presented by the department on IES. I'm not sure which slide did it appear on the Chief Operating Officer's presentation, but on the slide of what we have been given, it's on slide 30, whereby monies per legislation on EE is 360,000. Whilst the narrative that there is an explanation that says what were the reasons for non-compliance on EE, but it seems as if I'm not sure whether the amended legislation is not part of this presentation of quarter 3, because I think it will be coming into effect from 1st of September, if my memory serves me well. But the issue that I'm trying to raise here is that it seems as if there has been a low inspection on this part. Secondly, Chair, is on the issue of the employment of foreign nationals. I'm not sure whether because there is no legislation that talks to it and it doesn't appear anywhere in the presentation based on what has been inspected. What is it that the department has found in areas of inspection where there has been a lot of foreign national employment? I'm raising this, Chair, because over the last week, one happened to do some work in Gauteng, and in an area called Windsor. There is a mall there that is called Cresta Mall. 90% of the people employed in that mall, we are told by the people surrounding the area, in the surrounding areas, that 90% of the people employed in that mall are foreign nationals. I went there just to check, but unfortunately, I didn't have enough time. But the ones that I've met in one of the supermarkets, the whole till cashiers there are foreign nationals. Now, I think this issue needs to be somehow be factored in the reports. I'm not sure whether it would be compromising the performance agreement as it has been planned, or the performance targets. But somehow we would need to know how many companies have employed foreign nationals at the expense of South Africans on non-skilled positions or vacancies or jobs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kado.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 questions. The first is just to take up on the issue of the Employment Equity Amendment Act. I wanted to find out what exactly is happening with those regulations that were gazetted, whether there's been any follow-up on that, and also particularly about the implementation date, the promulgation of the Employment Equity Amendment Act. I know a statement was released by the Department on the 30th of August, telling employers that they would still be using the previous provisions of the Employment Equity Act rather than the provisions contained in the now amended Act. And I wanted to know when those amendments are going to come into force, what date they will take effect, and what the holdup is. Then secondly, I was curious about that section of the presentation which dealt with the National Employment Policy Intention, which is not something that I'm terribly familiar with. I would like to know what the background to this policy intention is. How is it different to the policy framework on employment that was set out in the National Development Plan? We all know that the National Development Plan is coming up for a 10-year review, and that National Development Plan's employment targets are absolutely nowhere near being met. So I wanted to know how this National Employment Policy Intention dovetails with the National Development Plan and where exactly it sits in terms of government and the economics cluster and who drives it. And then thirdly, I had a more topical question around occupational health and safety in terms of these dreadful fires which have broken out. The most recent one, we all know, that building in downtown Johannesburg. And I wanted to ask, presumably the department, in the wake of such fires, is compelled by law to produce reports. I know, for example, in the wake of that massive explosion and fire at the Rheinmetall factory in Somerset West, there was a report that was meant to be produced. I wanted to find out from the department, is a report to do with occupational health and safety compiled after every single one of these fires breaks out? And what happens to them? Who gets to read them? Who sees them? And how do we know whether the recommendations and the findings contained in those reports are acted upon? I think that's a fairly topical and salient question in light of the devastating fire that we witnessed recently. Thank you.
Honorable Nonsele.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, Chair, Honorable Chair, and Honorable members, and the Minister, and the Deputy Minister, and the DG and your team. Chair, my points have been covered largely, almost all. Nothing has been left for me. But I just to re-emphasize the point with regard to the road shows that the department has engaged in, particularly with regard to the areas of concern and the area that talks to the distortions that are made, particularly to the general public. In as much as the roadshow that was in East London was well attended by stakeholders, the notion that says that it needs to be extended to the wider area, if, for instance, you take into account that Eastern Cape is much wider, you have your Mthatha, that is the eastern part of Eastern Cape, which largely cries out for such roadshows, including the inner parts of the province, your northeastern, what is called Northeastern Cape. And if, for instance, those areas can in fact be covered as well. And perhaps if the department can just comment, in commenting, indicate whether, for instance, it would still be possible to cover those areas. The second point here was with regard to the progress that has been made by the SEE. I think we need to congratulate the team and the CEO for an excellent job done, particularly in ensuring that we have these commitments by the various provinces, in ensuring that the turnaround plan that was presented to us with regard to ensuring that we improve liquidity and also the business plan is in fact taken forward, is in fact being realized. So that congratulation should extend to the CEO and the team, and as well as the supervisory arm that is by the DG and the minister to the entities. The last point here is with regard to, again, to the two provinces, the performance, which is really an area of concern. And perhaps the questions that have been raised earlier on, which covers me as well, because I wanted to get clarity. And also if there are any steps taken with regard to consequence management, that is with regard to failure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I think that was the last hand. Or just because I've been covered myself on others, the comments I will do them when we're closing the meeting. In terms of SEE, in appreciating the report from the department and the SEE and the improvement that is being reflected by the SEE, I would like to get a breakdown of the 26 young people with disability, breakdown in terms of provinces, which province, so that I'm adding on the question that was asked by Honorable Mkhonto of saying, are they replacing or is it an addition? Are they replacing the old ones or is it a, for my side is it possible for us to get that breakdown now? If not, I will appreciate if then that is then circulated to the committee section within 7 days, because we are to have a greater understanding of really where are these at these 26 people. DG Marsha, if the minister is back, response to questions that have been asked, I will hand over to you. Thank you very much. Will you please lower your hand? If it's a
Thank you very much, Chair. I suppose, Chair, the one of the advantages of having, or one of the advantages of your decision as a committee to invite provincial heads of the department is that they should be able to speak for themselves. So on the performance of Limpopo and Northern Cape, we have the heads of the provinces here. So I'll ask Mr. Paswane Tlati, who's acting as the head of the province, and Mr. Albani, who is the head of the Northern Cape province, to respond to the questions that have been raised by both Honorable Mkonto and Nonsele. Maybe let's start there, Chair, so that we go systematically on the questions that were asked as we respond. Mr. Tlati, if you allow me, Chair.
Okay. Over to you, Mr. Tlati.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for this opportunity, and thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the DG, and my colleagues, the official of the Department of Labor. Yeah, it is true that with regard to inspection, we have not been doing well. What we have been grappling with for quite some time was the vacancy rate that we had, which impacted negatively on our performance. Even when we employed them, as time went on, we had to make sure that some of the inspectors that we have employed undergo training so that they are able to produce a product that is acceptable, and they are able to make sure that their files are competent as per the SOP of the department. So, and the other issue that we had to deal with is because when we assess the work of some of the inspectors, we're not satisfied with them. So we realized that some of the files are not as competent, and we had to make sure that we withdraw them so that they can work those files again. And we've been taking them through training so that they can understand and make sure that their files and their work is not questionable. Now, we have realized that this is a problem. And if you take a look at the performance of the labor centers, because normally what we do when we have a problem of this nature, you need to make an analysis as to what is the problem so that you understand better as to how to respond to it. And you go to individual inspectors and look at their output every month as to whether they are achieving their set target. In the main, we realize that many inspectors do achieve their targets. For us, it's just to encourage them to work double for the vacancies that are there. So, and this is what we've been urging them. Currently, what we are doing to address some of these problems is working back on police inspections, and we are focusing on the most vulnerable sectors. We've been doing the domestic, and we had problem with school, especially with declarations, the temporary teachers that the department employed when they try to apply for UIF and so on, they have problems. I think we have campaigns at the moment, and when I look at our performance for this 22-23 second quarter, we're on track to make sure that we achieve and get parity, especially on IES. With regard to public employment services, I think there was one where we missed 100%, and I was very much disappointed because historically we always achieve 100%. But we are back now, we are achieving 100%, and we're just monitoring it and keeping the momentum of 100%. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Northern Cape.
Good morning, Chair.
Morning, sir.
Good morning to the honorable members, Minister, DM, and DG and senior management of the department. As a province, we have very few labor centers. Now, if I raise the number of labor centers underperforming in the province, it might appear insignificant, but if you take into consideration the total number of labor centers, we'll understand the impact of such. Firstly, as a province, we were grappling with underperformance of 3 labor centers, that is Kimberley, Bosmasburg, and DR. And as a provincial management, we intervened in terms of implementing consequence management. For instance, in Bosmasburg, we had 1 inspector who was dismissed in spite of us having intervened in terms of providing wellness programs to the affected inspectors. In DR, we also have quite a unique situation there, ma'am, in that we did not have, in fact, the team leader is still absent from work due to ill health. He suffered a stroke, and 2 of the inspectors were also diagnosed with substance abuse. And as a province, we were, from ER side, we were then directed to refer them to health and wellness. They were sent to an institution. So their absence impacted on the performance of the office in DR. And then also in Kimberley, and Kimberley is the biggest office. It carries the weight of the entire province. We also had challenges there, Chairperson, and I can assure members that in terms of implementing consequence management, that was also done. However, the implementation of consequence management has no direct impact on the ultimate outcome when we look at the performance. But I can assure you, Chairperson, that the 2 offices, Bosmasburg and Kimberley, have indeed turned the corner. You will see the performance, especially this financial year. In DR, we're still having those challenges with the 2 inspectors, but we're carefully monitoring the situation. Now, what we've also agreed to, which is something that we've implemented and we are implementing currently, is that we started off with initiating projects that will realize increased number of inspections, in that we will, for instance, target certain areas where we know that there's a high concentration of employers. We will then deploy our inspectors in those areas so that they can conduct more inspections that they would ordinarily do if they are in their offices. So yes, I will concede, Chair, that in those 3 offices, there were issues, there were challenges, but we intervened. And like I said, unfortunately, those interventions did not translate into improvement in terms of performance at the time. However, going forward, there's going to be an increase in terms of the number of inspections conducted in those offices, whilst at the same time, we're also addressing the challenges in the DR office. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Back to you, DG.
Thank you, Chair. On the employment equity policy and platforms that we are using to reach out to people, especially in the far-flung areas, and the question raised by Honorable Ntabe and Honorable Nonsele on the possibility of extending the roadshows to the eastern and northern side of the Eastern Cape. Chair, we've been going around conducting these roadshows, and certainly there's commitment from the department to make sure that the employment equity amendments are understood, their intentions are understood, and as per the intention of the legislature. As Honorable Mdabi has indicated, we were in Chatsworth recently, and tomorrow we're going to Gqeberha, and next week we're going to on the 13th of September we'll be in Cape Town in the Lagoon, at the Lagoon Beach. So we have in total done about 19 visits to a number of provinces. So we please also cover this area. We will do our best to make sure that that area is covered, because it's in the interest of all of us to see to it that the new amendments are understood. The intentions are not what is being mentioned on TVs and newspapers. So we are doing that, and we'll continue to do that. So our stakeholder engagement is really engaged in as far as this matter is concerned. Just let me tie up this question with the question raised by Honorable Kato on the when are the amendments taking effect? The amendments will take effect on the next year, sometime next year, 2024. We're waiting for the president to make that announcement and also to sign the proclamation. What is this word now? Yeah, but the president will indicate the date in terms of when is this act going to take effect? I mean, the amendment are going to take effect. So of course we had to pause with the regulations, and what the exercise of gazetting the regulations did was to allow us an opportunity to engage with people and hear what they say in terms of the inputs that they wanted to make. So once the president has announced the effective date of these amendments, we will then also sign off, obviously after having taken into consideration the public comments. We will then sign off the regulations, because the regulations must actually give effect to the law. So I think that's the report on that. So when it comes to, I think the SCECO will deal with the issue of the breakdown of the young people that have been appointed, whether they're replacing the retired one, or is this a new cohort of young people that have been employed. Honorable Dana raised the issue of finances. Why the big difference between Q2 and Q3 in terms of expenditure? That is always the case. If you've noticed our reports throughout the years, and that's largely because Q2 and Q3, especially Q3, are the busiest in terms of the work that we do, and we spend more money. And also, if you really look at the transfer of monies allocated for the entities, CCMA, NETLEG, and others, really the bulk of it goes off in the third quarter of the financial year. I think that's what the CFO was explaining. The jump in terms of the expenditure of labor market policy to 91% in the third quarter, and that's largely because of the transfers that they effect to the entities that fall under them. The CFO may add if I have not covered everything in this question. We have been engaging.
You have covered what are my response. Thanks.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. Then we've been engaging with the National Treasury and other departments on the preferential procurement status of SCE. And I must say that this is a battle that we haven't won. But we are pleased by the fact that if you look at the report of the SCE, there are provinces and departments that are coming on board to use the services of this entity, and that's why the CEO in his report was able to report the exceptional performance in terms of the sales for both Q2 and Q3. And that's largely because of the orders that we received from those provinces, Northwest, I think Northern Cape, and those are largely school desks, and also, of course, the Western Cape, which is hospital linen. So that's. But as far as proclaiming and saying there's a preferential procurement status for the entity, even though we have not won the fight, but we have not given up in terms of making sure that one day we'll convince the people who are supposed to make these decisions to make the decision in favor of this entity. I think on the point raised by, I think that the Inspector General will talk to this better if I don't cover it completely. On the firstly, on the monies collected, especially on the employment equity, it should not be. It should not, therefore, be, or there should not be a deduction that because the numbers, the amount collected is low, we haven't done enough inspection in that area. In fact, we have. The DG reviews that we do, and it's just that especially on the DG reviews, it's a protracted process. It takes a long time for you to see, and what you see as these low numbers, low amount, it reflects the administrative non-compliance as far as, for instance, setting up of committees and all other things. I think those are the fines that are related to that. But inspections do take place, and we have a dedicated, in all provinces, dedicated teams that specializes on employment equity inspections. And on the foreign nationals, incidentally, Honorable Mdabe, the team was in Mandane and Sithebe in Newcastle. They're doing a blitz as we speak in that area, and it's a joint program with SAPS, Home Affairs, us as well. So we do have the information in terms of what we're picking up in those inspections. But in our normal inspections, we don't collect that data that way, where we reflect that in a workplace that we visited, the X number of foreigners and all that. Because largely the intention for us is to see to it that every person who's employed enjoys the basic rights as provided for in the different pieces of legislations that we administer. However, on this specific issue, we have information. We can make the information available to the committee in terms of the areas we've been to and what does the picture look like in those areas. In fact, recently we had a working with Hawks, SAPS, and Home Affairs. We went to some establishment here in Johannesburg, where 43 undocumented foreigners were arrested in those joint inspections, and they recovered drugs and all that. So there's work that is being undertaken, but it doesn't form part of the daily grind of the activities that we do as a department. But the information is available. Mr. Mrotoba will respond on the issue of the national employment policy and how it dovetails with the national development plan. On the fires, I'll ask the Inspector General to respond to this matter and what happens to the reports. Yeah, I think that's so I'll ask, Chair, with your permission, the CEO of SCE to just address the questions relating to the entity, and then thereafter the Inspector General will then come in, and Mr. Mrotoba after her. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, DG, through the Honorable Chairperson. On the question raised by Honorable Mkonto on whether or not the 26 persons with disabilities employed in Q3 were additional or replacement, I must confirm that the 26 were additional. However, must also mention that from time to time, there will be 1 or 2 individuals that will go on pension, and those are replaced as such. However, for the period under review, those numbers were purely additional employment. We shall then circulate the impact analysis, which will showcase the actual split, which will reflect our national footprint, but we'll circulate that report as directed by the Honorable Chairperson within 7 days. And on the question raised by Honorable Dana on the, I think it was around the preferential procurement. Yeah, our DG has actually addressed that, but to add to what the DG has actually mentioned, we have really seen a number of departments that have been forthcoming. Department of Public Works and Infrastructure have signed in, have placed orders. Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, to mention but a few, and a number of provinces have come through to support us. And also, I think Honorable Dana requested the address for our Bloemfontein factory. It's basically next to the University of the Orange Free State, 197 Nelson Mandela Street, Universitas, but we can also forward that in writing so that she has it on a permanent basis. I think those are the questions that were raised, and we also welcome the positive comments from Honorable Nonsele. And as we move forward, we will ensure that we drive consistency in terms of that performance, and we also welcome the support from various departments. Thank you so much.
Inspector General, is there anything that you would like to reflect on?
Yes, Chair. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members. The Minister, I'm not sure whether he's joined the meeting again, the Deputy Minister, the DG, colleagues. I'm going to switch off my camera, Chair. I just want, and thanks for the opportunity, I just want to add briefly on the issue of employment equity and how we reach out in terms of informing the masses out there. I think just to add on what the DG has said, from an implementation point of view, we also have focused advocacy sessions. These include, but are not limited to, seminars that would have information sessions, as well as conferences. We also work very closely with the Employment Equity Commission as far as possible. And this type of advocacy sessions, Chair, are held both locally, at a local level, in provinces as well as nationally. We also attend cluster meetings where different stakeholders come in that are driven by government itself, where we also get slots where we talk about issues around employment equity. So our outreach campaigns are quite widespread. And then just also to add on the area of employment equity, the question that was raised by Mr. Honorable Mdebe, that the monies that were recovered, like the DG was saying, will be linked to non-compliance insofar as portions of the employment equity are concerned, and it will be as a result of referral to court. And I also want to emphasize that these are as a result of the current law, since the amended law is yet to be promulgated, like the DG was saying. And on the issue of employment of foreign nationals, I want to emphasize the fact that it is an area which is worrisome, quite pervasive, affects a lot of sectors. And the only time that we are able to pick up and do something about that is when we conduct coordinated inspections. Otherwise, in the course of our inspectors doing their normal work, what they would do is to try and check the payrolls and check the number of foreign nationals. And also when you interview about the employers and employees, will ask questions around it. But we are mindful of the fact that there is a tendency, and it's quite widespread, where employers will purposely conceal the fact that they've got foreign nationals in their employ. They go to an extent of hiding people, and in some instances, they'll give you just a payroll register that has only the locals. We know about that, and we have a way of finding out a chairperson, and it is through coordinated efforts that you are able to do something about it, like I said. And in terms of incidents that take place, I think Honorable Kado referred to Rain Metal Factory, to the fires, the most recent ones. There's one that took place yesterday. There's also one that took place a few weeks ago in Lilian in central CBD Johannesburg. Indeed, we do conduct inspections, and we subject this type of incidents to either a Section 31 or Section 32 investigation in line with the OHS Act. And indeed, we do have reports, preliminary reports, that will be for the consumption of the department. And then once the investigation is finalized, we'll have a final report, which would also be directed to the relevant institutions. In most instances, such reports will be sent to the NPA. A case in point will precisely be the Rain Metal matter that was sent to the NPA. And in terms of who then would have access to that, I think I've already indicated that it should be the relevant structures, Chairperson. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands. Is the Minister back? By the looks, he's not yet back. GM, is there anything that you want to reflect on? But the GM seems not to be with us also. Did you? Am I audible?
No, you are audible, Chair.
Oh.
Chair, no, thank you very much. I think the team covered everything. Thanks.
No, thank you very much, DG and your team, and also the presence of the CDPOs of the provinces is much appreciated. In terms of the response, I just want to make a comment in terms of the response of the two provinces, the Limpopo and Northern Cape. I'm a bit worried and concerned. I think we will, all of us, as members of this committee, on the response in terms of, should I say, I'm trying to get a better word, in terms of the caliber of inspectors. It's raising a number of questions. Remember, we have visited some provinces when we had a joint oversight, and there were allegations that were leveled against inspectors in terms of their conduct. I'm not quite sure in Limpopo. I was not part of the team, but I was part of the team in the Northern Cape, and some of the areas in the Eastern Cape and in Gauteng. Maybe then that person, who is the CFO of the department? I just want to, can he please switch off his mic? Can somebody call him? I just want to say to him, these meetings are meetings that are very important and are taken serious, and their decorum is something that we don't compromise. You are just reminding me, when the DG was saying if he has responded on everything, you just responded without raising your hand and be allowed to speak by the chair. We don't do that. If there's something that you want to raise, to speak on, you'll raise your hand or you'll indicate in a matter that is not disturbing the meeting. And again, now your mic is on, you are talking with somebody else when the meeting is still in session. Please, DG, outside this meeting, you will empower some of your staff. So I'm saying, DG, maybe not now, as you move on, as you are moving on in the department and checking, it's going to be very important, because it is creating a serious challenge, and we raise our eyebrows if then that is the caliber of some of the inspectors in provinces. It's only that this thing is coming up now when it's towards the end of our term, where we'll check if we can still have some interactions with the staff through the oversight. In terms of, I don't know, DG, if then you have got an inspector that is incapacitated, can you please follow the processes, due processes, so that space is not compromised in terms of having a person that is to work? Because if you have got somebody with a stroke, obviously that person is incapacitated, and in my understanding, there are processes that a person is to be assisted on so that that vacancy is a vacancy that is filled. Please, DG, if you can draw your attention to Limpopo and Northern Cape. The last one, honorable members, will be on the visits and the outreach by the Department of Employment and Labor on these regulations on the Employment Equity Act. I want to propose that yes, I know you wouldn't be able to go to each and every corner as we would love you to do, but there are areas that have got very much had a wide range of listening. The community radio stations. Please use those so that people are empowered. People are empowered to understand what that act is about, vis-a-vis the myth that is being circulated here around the country and creating a confusion of, in fact, dividing the society. I don't know whether that is deliberate or not, but please don't be apologetic. We've got, in fact, here in Gqeberha, we've got a radio station who's listening, views, people that are listening to it are more than 200,000. And I hope you will do that in languages. Just your communication unit must then begin to look into that so that we deal with this thing. It's quite disturbing, but we are happy with what the department is doing. I hope, if time permits, I will be able to attend the one that is in Gqeberha. And I was also excited with the tools that you had in East London and here in Gqeberha, speaking to employers, and taken aback by the feedback that, in fact, some of the employers are not as are accepting and acknowledging and appreciating the role and the processes that the Department of Employment and Labor is empowering on, vis-a-vis the views that are all over here that this department is not fit for purpose. Carry on the good work. The communities, as long as the communities are acknowledging your work, please. Yes, there are areas that are to be corrected, but we do appreciate the work that you are doing. With that, members, we will then release everybody. In the next meeting, we will appreciate. In the next, still have got some presentations. CTPOs, you will be appreciated if you join, because I still want to emphasize and to labor on that. Of department labor centers are in provinces. They are not in head office. They're not in Pretoria. They're not in head office. People are not going to the office of the DG to get their claims, to inquire about their claims and whatever. They are in provinces. And you being here and listen to the views, the questions that I asked by members will assist you in empowering your staff and correcting the challenges that may be there. You are then released. We are then going to, we'll just give 2 minutes for you to log out, because we are then going to deal with our in-house matters as the committee. Thank you very much. Thank you, DG.
Thank you, Chair, and the honorable members.
Thank you, Chair.
And The cake, DG, we'll await our slices of cake of your birthday. I don't want to ask how old are you?
I'll send them through the Take-A-Lot, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Sakaza, you'll indicate when the staff has left the meeting.
Okay, Chair, I'll do that.
I think they are gone.
Yes, I think so.
Mr. Ndamu is still here.
Yeah.
I don't know who's Mandla Sibanyon. Kube.
Okay, Chair.
Can you please flout our program?
I will do so. Let me remove this. There you are, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Sakaza. Honorable members, that is our program for adoption. You will see that today we were dealing with, and then that's what we are doing next week, on the 13th, and then the week of the 20th. That is our program. What I also wanted to, for the 29th to the 22nd of September, which is the third term. What I also want to reflect to members, there are two things. You know that on Friday, we've invited by NEDLEC, and there are members that have come. In fact, we have been, the whole committee was invited, but you know that that does not, it's not us to decide if the whole committee is to attend, and the powers to be, we were only allowed 5 members to attend that, which is going to be on Friday. But the other important matter, which I thought it's important that members are aware of now, is that on the 17th, on the week of the 17th, sorry, we are visited by the committee from Kenya. We have applied that we meet them on the I'm trying to check on the 19th, which is Tuesday. The 19th, that week. The reason that I'm raising it here is I'm raising it for members to prepare themselves, because it is not going to be a virtual meeting. It's going to be a physical meeting when we meet with them. So we are busy with all the logistical preparations in terms of the venue that we are then going to be utilizing. So I thought it's important, members, that I reflect on that. So that is our program. Can we get a formal mover? Honorable Mdabe.
Thank you, Chair. I formally move for adoption of the third term program framework.
Thank you. Seconder.
Hello, is
Honorable
Chair?
Nonsale. Okay, I'll leave it for Honorable Dana.
Honorable Dana.
Thank you, Chair. I second the adoption of the program. And I just have a question. Who are the 5 members attending the NEDLAC Summit on Friday, please?
Oh, okay. When it's usually proportional representation in terms of if then we are given a particular number. So it's the 3 from the African National Congress, 1 from the Democratic Alliance, and 1 from the Economic Freedom Fighters. And then in terms of who then will be going will be determined by the party. But those obviously will then be led by the chair. So in the 3 from the African National Congress, the 1 is the chair, and then the African National Congress will then indicate who are those that will then be attending. Thank you. Thank you, honorable members. We are. Thank you. Let's our meeting stand adjourned. We'll meet next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Bye.
Chair. Bye.